Because we are very obsessed with not only curating our feeds online, we are almost curating our children. Like we want to curate their personality, and to me, that is a very, very frightening thought.
As I sleep at night, ideas come, and I really feel my focus should be on parent education now.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Because if I'm a child advocate, and if my goal is the child, wellness and well-being for the child, then you have to make sure their ecosystem is
Supportive,
right.
yes.
So
My daughter came back from school. She's in school for 6 hours as a 4-year-old. So she comes home and she needs to decompress. And the first 30 minutes, she's sometimes unregulated and a little cranky. Gave it 30 minutes, just heard her grumble a little bit. And in 30 minutes, I just took her to the garden. And I was telling Nanki that she didn't need a kitchen set. She'd converted like twigs and leaves into a restaurant.
And that's why boredom is so important.
Exactly.
Child development is child mental health. That's what I learned. That child development is child mental. That's what I mean. She's kind of exemplified.
So it's a window.
Yeah, it's their emotional world.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Unparent. Today we are in the Learning Matters campus in Vasant Vihar, and we have with us Miss Sonya Philip. Firstly, Miss Phillips, thank you so much for speaking to us. I know we are going to have a lot to learn from this conversation, and while you don't need any introduction, at least for most mums with toddlers or preschool-aged kids in Delhi, please would you introduce yourself to our audience?
I've always loved children, and I've always had an affinity for children. I feel understanding children is a inborn thing, just like you have people who love dogs, you can't train them for that. I feel I've had that with children. It's that understanding children, innately. I just have that innate ability and truly enjoy it. And so then gradually I started teaching at the American school when I was very young, at 22, and learned a lot there. I was there for 18 years as an early childhood educator. The school encouraged professional growth, and one realized how important that body of knowledge and understanding child development, understanding how young children thrive. So after 18 years of being in that field, I knew it was like I was a duck to water. Loved every bit of it. However, it was my own son who was showing some developmental struggles. And in spite of having a master's in education from the United States, I, as a mother, and my colleagues at AES were at sea. We really didn't understand why someone who looks like all children doesn't learn like all children. And circumstances allowed me to move to the United States to take my son to a school there. At that time, Time magazine had done a cover story on an amazing school where the children learned through the arts and, an alternate way of learning. And I read that article and I could connect my son to the profile of children that they were talking about. And so I did everything in my power to get him admitted in that school, which again is another podcast in itself. And
How old was your son at this
He was
point?
11.
He was 11. Okay.
He was 11 by the time I moved. So it was, but I think when he was in third grade, that it became evident that he needed more than just the mainstream educators who know about the curriculum and disseminating it. So that took me to the US, and I was there for 6+ years. I went back to university to study. I did a second postgraduate degree, this time in learning differences. And I got hands-on teaching experience in the school where my son was. It just so happened that Sally Smith, who was the founder of the Lab School of Washington, was also the chairperson of the master's program at the American University. So we interned for a year at the school. And then, of course, after I graduated, I started working there. And I really was getting answers, as to why is it that my son has such trouble tying his shoelaces, or why is it that, I sometimes see him alone in the cafeteria, or why is it that when he sees a play, he's unable to relate back what the play was about in a sequence. He might say what was in the end first and then in the middle, and it wasn't flowing in the order. And so I got answers. And how.
That's actually fascinating to me, because what was the difference? What was not happening in the school that he was in here that was being addressed in this school that you read about? And what were these? I know it's a fairly open ended question, but what were these answers?
So what my mind opened up to was, wow, the brain is as diverse as we are physically. Just like you look different from me, whether it's your eyes, your hair, your height. Similarly, our brains are different. But just because it's a hidden organ, we don't know about this diversity. Someone may be really good at expressing language, another person may be better at sports and not good at expressing language. Someone may be more clumsy than someone else. Someone may understand information when it's presented in a visual form rather than linguistic form. So, this understanding that there is this diversity of minds, and then knowing how you can manage the diversity, because schools are one size fits all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone is expected to
Perform the same way.
read this chapter in third grade and answer those questions and answer them in writing. And so there are minds there that may have understood it very well, but are not really able to express it in writing. And they may be able to express it through making a poem about it,
Yeah.
or creating a drama about something. So this whole diversity of minds, and how it can and it should be addressed, and it's rather disheartening that till today our school systems are still very much one size fits all, and there are benchmarks, and if a child is not reaching that benchmark, it's the child's fault. It could be the parents' fault, but not the school reflecting on what is it that, because it's, education is a profession. It's a profession, right?
Yeah.
Just like law and medicine, it's a body of knowledge. Unfortunately, teachers don't have that body of knowledge. Just because someone can read and speak, being a teacher is not adequate. You have to know this fantastic array of minds in your classroom that are there, and the strengths and areas of needs, and how do you plan. So I've always told, because I do a lot of teacher training, that teaching is a science, because you need to know, what you're teaching, but it's also an art. And successful teachers balance that beautifully. in knowing children, and how do we uh, suss out what could be coming in the way of Priya in my classroom, that she is, so antsy and is moving around and is needing to, use her body constantly in some movement and not sitting. That doesn't make Priya a bad student, or she's not doing this to annoy the teacher. It's because Priya's mind needs that movement to stay active. So, understanding children. So then when I came back after 6 years in the US, I knew I was very fortunate as a mother to give my son the best that the world had to offer. And I felt I had really found a purpose. And so I wanted to help other children, other parents, other families in understanding their children. And that's how Learning Matters was born. And because my earlier experience was all in early years, and children were coming to us for this kind of support in the afternoon, post school hours, I felt the morning was open. My center had the space. Why not start something for early childhood? Because I also realized the importance of early childhood. And so, in fact, it was a parent who came to me to talk about her son. And we got talking, and I said, "What do you do?" And she said, "Oh, I'm an early childhood educator." And I said, and I exchanged some what kind of early childhood educator she was, and it was totally in sync with what I believed the early years are. That I said, "Okay, why don't you join and let's start an early years program?" And she said, "Sure." And we started with 3 children in the morning. So that's how then the early childhood piece started in the mornings, working with students with learning struggles and differences we do in the afternoon, and also teacher training, which I do mostly on the weekends. But as we are sitting here this afternoon, right here, will be I'm doing a 3-month certificate course training people in understanding learning differences. So we meet 2 times a week, Thursdays and Saturdays. So this room will be full of adults learning.
And I
On
mean
that.
I think that's such an now it makes sense how the journey sort of flowed. So it was really interesting to hear it from you, especially how your own experience with your son sort of led you here. Um, and I think that resonates a lot with me as well, because I mean I have 2 young children and I see how different they are. I was in fact speaking to Nanki right now, because Nanki is of course has a background in of course psychology, so sometimes we just pick her brain a little bit. But it is true. I think just recognizing that each child is different is such a important first step. But I know you also speak a lot about how the early years lays the foundation for lifelong learning.
Mhm.
And I wanted to understand a bit more about that as a parent, because somewhere I feel like I innately know it, which is why I'm so focused on the early years of my children. I want to be present. I want to make sure they have access to play and free time and getting bored. And, all of these are like conscious decisions in terms of parenting. But from an educator and also from the view of a psychologist, why are the early years so important? And what can parents do to ensure that our children are flourishing in the early years? It's again a sort of heavy question.
Childhood is a very distinct stage of development, right from birth to 5, 6. Why? Because that's when the brain is developing at a great speed. The connections in the brain are happening at great speed. Um, so the experiences a child has will determine those connections. So the experience a child has in safety and security will determine whether that child will grow up to be an adult who is secure.
Yeah.
The experiences the child will have with the ability to use language around him or her, a child who's spoken to, who's responded to, who's read to, will lay the foundations for his or her language development for life. Because those neural connections are the ones that'll grow. And it's really life skills that happen in the early years. What do I mean by life skills? So, whether a child will be a risk taker. Now, if we are constantly going to, "Nahi, don't do this," the didi is always there, "Nahi, gir jayenge, chot lagegi, gande ho jayenge, ye mat karo," then that child doesn't know how to take risks, will never be able to be
Yeah.
someone who will be resilient. Grow up to be resilient. How do you become resilient? By trying, by failing, by learning from your mistakes. Big life skill. We want adults who are resilient. Similarly, emotionally, we have adults who can't regulate their emotions. Zara sa kuch nahi hua, frustrate ho gaye. If life experience doesn't go the way you want it to, there's anger, there's rage. So all this is again rooted in early years. That how we are with a young child is the adult. So that child will become. So I always say we're not in the business of children. We're really in the business of shaping adults.
Absolutely.
That
You know?
absolutely, it exactly resonates with me, and I think it's so meaningful everything you said, because I think I mentioned before that I studied at the Anna Freud Center, and Anna Freud was Sigmund Freud's youngest daughter, and she was also an educator, just like you. And it was during the war when they moved from Vienna and Germany. They kind of fled and moved to London, and she set up the Anna Freud Center, which what is today the Anna Freud Center, but it was essentially a nursery, and where she was educating children, because she felt that children need to experience as much of neutrality and normality as possible. And it was during that time that she kind of zeroed in on, because there was war happening in the external world, and she was very intrigued by their internal experience of life, of being separated from their parents, from of or what is it like to be experiencing studying or academics, or learning. Of course it looked very different then. So yeah, I think that absolutely matches what you're saying, because it is in that early time where it is the experience you give to your child, in the way you teach them, in the way you express, whether it's affection, whether it's frustration, whether it's letting them make their mistakes. Like an example I often give parents, absolutely what you're saying, that when a child is crawling and moves towards walking, it's gradual. But if every time he gets up and he falls, and you're going to be like, oh my God, that reaction is going to be internalized, and the child is never going to learn how to walk. And that is exactly what is happening. So I have a question. How are you as an educator? You're dealing with parents every day. How do you break that down to parents? Because a lot of times the lack of regulation in parents is also deep rooted in their early years and their experience of being parented. How do you get them to regulate themselves from this over anxious, over parenting tendencies?
Not only to regulate, I feel like there must be a lot of resistance from these parents. Like when you're trying, like you said, that you're actually truly in the business of shaping adults. So I just keep thinking that yes, there's one part which is regulation, but I feel like I would like to assume that you must be getting a lot of resistance, and that can't be an easy thing to maneuver at all.
Welcome to FA Home Junior, where every nap, cuddle, and giggle feels a little more magical. Made with love, stitched with care for the little ones you love most.
So, I've always told all the people at LM Learning Matters that, parent talks I would like to do. Any kind of parent orientation, let me come in and talk about that, because I know I reach them, because I come even from their point of view.
You are a
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah, no, and also I understand where they are coming from. And I also understand they want the best for their child. So, it's a win win. They are coming from that. Now they need to be supported with the why and the how of, their parenthood journey. It's, anyone can become a parent, and it's such an important job. It's probably the most important job, but nobody comes with any kind of learning about how to be an effective, good parent. They feel bacha ho gaya, and now then this whole marketplace of digital world, and comparing with my friend's child and your friend's child, and school demands, and the fish market on the you know internet. I mean, it's very hard being a parent today. I don't think I struggled as a parent at all, when I had my children who were young. Pal gaye. And one just did, I don't know, it was a different time where this constant pressure of, monitoring your child and making sure you're planning for your child every hour of the day, making sure, this myth about early is better, and oh, your child is now not learning phonics. Oh, my child is in this phonics class. Oh, your child is not able to write now. Oh, you must go for this math class. You must. And there's this lack of informed understanding about children and child development and childhood. And this is a global phenomena.
True.
I sometimes feel our children in the villages and in the rural areas are far better off, where the
Absolutely.
parents are
Busy.
working outside, the child is keeping themselves busy, पत्थर से खेल रहे हैं, मिट्टी से खेल रहे हैं, खुद जाके पानी लेके आ रहे हैं. I really feel this urban, especially this upper class urban parent phenomena is so detrimental for children, detrimental to what children need, and parents are doing it thinking they're doing the best.
Absolutely.
So it's that misinformation.
But I think it's the same. That's how I understand it, because again, resonates with a lot of the work that I do with parents. That whose need is it to compete?
But I'll give the parents'
compare.
perspective again. And I mean, I've seen both sides. I mean, I'm a parent that has very consciously tried to not give my children too much to do, just go in the garden and play. But I can do that because I live on a farm with a lot of green space. Like the green spaces are being taken away from us. Neighborhoods are not what they used to be. So the world has changed. So I understand the frustration that parents have as well, that, okay, if I don't get my kid out to a class, they're stuck with a screen. So it's better that they're in tennis class as opposed to being stuck with a screen. And it takes a lot as a parent to be like, no screen, no tennis class, go and get bored and play with some leaves. It takes a lot to reach that point. So I get the frustration that parents have, but I do think this message is so important to keep reiterating, because as a parent, we have to remind ourselves it's okay if our child is playing with 5 pieces of wood. It's okay if our child is finding some.
No,
forced
it's
to
not
imagine
only
it.
okay, it's beneficial.
It's beneficial. Exactly.
How is it beneficial?
Yeah, let's discuss a little bit of that. How is
So
it
when
beneficial?
a child is playing with those pieces of wood, they are bringing their imagination. They are using creativity. That wood is maybe a tank. That wood could be a flag. That wood could be mama and papa. That wood could be. Children need to, that's how children understand their world, by role playing out their understanding. Ever since the toy industry came, it robbed children of imagination, because a red truck can only be a red truck.
Yeah.
Whereas a stick could be anything that. So, who's doing the thinking? The child. Who's doing the thinking in the red truck?
The
The
toy.
red truck.
Yeah.
So, we are immediately cutting children's this absolute opportunity to be creative, to bring their imagination, to know how to manage their time, to stay focused and on task.
Just make sense
These
of
are
the
all
world.
these are all life skills that I'm talking about. Tomorrow, not tomorrow. What does the job market need? It doesn't need, factory assembly line people. I mean, maybe
That's
there
how the
are
schooling
jobs that
system
need
anyway
that.
started,
But by
right?
and large, who are the people who are really going to, and especially now with all this artificial intelligence, etc., where everything's at your fingertips, what is it that it can't replace?
Critical thinking.
It cannot replace creativity,
Yeah.
critical thinking, problem solving, thinking outside the box, sustained attention. And all this is naturally helping in the cognition through play. But what do I mean by what all is happening and is allowed to happen? And parents are just queuing up
I think it's
because
the
of
commodification of
being
childhood.
uninformed.
Yeah.
So we need the old fashioned childhood where parents are there in the very much around, one eye is always on the child, but not hovering over children, not planning every minute of their day, not doing everything for them, not giving them everything, in the with the notion that I'm really doing what I should be doing as a parent, i.e., giving my child the best
A
leg
great
up.
So
childhood
I
through
have a
this.
very interesting question from some of the families I've had the privilege of working with. Very similar to what you said, where within the academic journey, they discover that their child might have different needs. Yes, invariably, the parental response initially is it fluctuates between panic and denial. Yes, until they reach some kind of a bargaining, and what that bargaining entails is okay, one of the parents will quit their jobs and effectively make the child their job, right? Because there is an inherent assumption that everything about your child is about you, right? Like it's because of you. And I think there's something to say about that I really want to say to parents listening in, which is that there's a big part of a child that they're born with, and parenting is also about understanding and having the curiosity to get to know your child and see him or her for what he or she is. But what would you say to these parents who very unconsciously, in the best of their intentions, exactly what you're saying, we're doing our best. I gave up my job for this child and it's been 5 years. And the school is still coming up with many complaints, right? Because I know in the consulting room, by the time the child is referred out, that the classroom is not managing and the parents are not managing. And often my narrative or journey with them is that, yeah, I think the system is the problem, the child is not the problem, which ultimately leads to a dropout, right? Dropout from because there is no learning matters for over 6 and 7 and 8, right?
That's what I've been thinking this
So
whole
where
time.
do you send those children, right? So that's when they come to us. And already a lot of development has happened. And a lot of times it involves parents to reflect, introspect, and then they drop out. They drop out of any counseling or psychotherapy process as well. I'd really like to learn from you in terms of how to address that with parents, because I fully relate to what you're saying, that there is a need to also understand their desires as parents, their struggles as parents. But are they willing to really introspect and reflect in the way that they need to?
I think you've many layers of questions within that, what you're saying. Um One is that to be a good parent, we have to be, first of all, reflective upon our own unmet needs, which we project onto children. We want to live vicariously through our children. Just because a parent was not able to shine in, I don't know, a sport, then this absolute manic focus on this child to be the star.
That's the
And,
right word. Manic focus.
sending them for classes, So why are we doing that? And poor child. I mean, children are like putty. They will do anything to feel accepted, to feel loved, to feel they belong. So it's their psychological well-being that is linked to them being able to do what a parent is saying. So we have to, first of all, every parent should, before they become a parent, go through some serious self analysis of, where they are. And that would require, obviously, going to a professional and understanding. I feel it's the same thing with marriage. We just get married, and aajkal to marriage is more about the lehenga and the
I'm so
diamonds
glad
rather than
that she's
the
saying it and not me.
relationship. You're entering a relationship. What does that mean? What do you feel about money? What do you feel about
Yeah.
the wife working and the husband staying at home? What do you feel about, how we rear our children? What do you feel about, so many aspects? You need to get ready with all that. And maybe you're not meant to be together. Rather than after all that big fat
Paraphernalia.
wedding, you are then realizing you are not compatible. And then there's all this stress and tension. So, one is that whole self analysis before you even become a parent, because really a child is an individual. Like Khalil Gibran said, they may come through you, but they are not you. You have to allow them and the opportunities to be who they uniquely are. And every child is uniquely who they are. If that child's personality is one that's quiet, don't push them into becoming this extrovert. If this child's personality is one that is fascinated with birds and bugs, don't take that away. So knowing your child and being present to what that, by observing what that is. And that's what we do at Learning Matters, is that our teachers are trained to become observers. We are not about the curriculum. Our curriculum is the child. So, what we're going to do this year may look very different from next year, because the group of kids we have this year are who they are. They are really interested in bahar barish ho rahi hai, and, the squeals and laughter of the earthworms, and, then do a whole thing on that. That's where your curriculum gets shaped. Let's find out about earthworms. Do they have eyes? How do earthworms do potty? What does their potty look like? How do earthworms move? How long do earthworms live? How many birthdays do they have? Look at your research. And this is, the educator is a co-researcher with the child, following their lead. So that's about children, and I'm sure we'll delve more into that. But in terms of if a child is struggling to meet academic demands, again, that's a wide ocean. Why and where that breakdown is coming.
I'll just clarify, not just academic demands, it's also classroom demands, to be this compliant child who's sitting in one place,
Yeah, so
learning
it's
in.
academic demands, which schools also have behavioral
Yes.
expectations, and there are also social impact, because the child who is, the clown in the class, the child who is, you know, not really participating in the class and is sinking into their own being. So you see, when a child is not understood, the areas of impact are academic, cognitive, they are behavioral, and they are social. So in those three areas, the impact comes. Not being able to make friends, not being able, if you've got a language difficulty, a child who is struggling with processing of language in what we call, now I'm getting technical, say the semantics, the meaning of language, to be able to understand the meaning, this is a child who's not going to get figurative language. This is a child who doesn't have, who has a paucity of vocabulary. So when someone's talking and they're using words, they're not really able to stay with it. Or the child who is unable to get the joke. So all this is with language. So, and it's really not the parent's job to know all this. I feel parents' job is to be emotionally available. Parents' job is to unconditionally love their child for who they are. This is a whole different area. That is the learning component, which supposedly schools are supposed to be doing. So it's the teachers who need to know how to address that language. Why is this boy Sanjay alone? What's going on? Is it the language? Is it the social piece? Is not really picking up the cues? And these are all neural reasons, how the brain is, the central nervous system for that child is. So educators, it's their job to know. And what do most schools do? They blame the parent. That the parent drops out from their workforce to be present without the knowledge and the skills. And why should a mother become a teacher at home? The mother needs to be the safe spot for the child. The mother needs to be the place where the child can go and cry and feel comforted and understood. But if the mother now has also become the teacher and saying, "Ab chalo spellings karni hai, spell list, last time you got 3 out of 10. I'm so happy now you got 8 right." I mean, the child is doing everything, but we've not understood why that child is struggling with spelling.
Because we are very obsessed with not only curating our feeds online, we are almost curating our children. Like we want to curate their personality. And to me, that is a very, very frightening thought. And this obsession with get the spelling right is not only that the child is learning academically, is because you want the child who excels at academics, can play sports like a rock star, likes to sing also, and is probably Picasso in the making. So, this obsession with curation, which started online, has now seeped into our personal lives so deeply that not only have, you know, parents are, of course, I completely understand and fully agree that our job is to just provide safety and security. There is a body of professionals who know what they are doing.
But
Or
they
one,
don't.
but that's what I'm
They
saying. Or
don't.
one would like to
Unfortunately.
believe. One would like to believe that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. So this thing of curating your child, I mean, every parent wants their child to be happy,
Yeah.
right? Bottom line.
Yeah.
Because you don't want them to suffer. And if they're not doing well in school, you feel they're suffering and you want to do what you need to do. If they don't have friends, you know they're lonely and suffer. If they're not invited to that birthday party where everybody else is invited, if they're not part of the invitation to whatever. So, but I really think parents need to be parents, and they need to be informed enough to advocate for their child. If they know their child, they need to advocate for their child and not the other way around, where the school is blaming them. You're not doing enough. And then because you're a working mother, then that guilt comes in. And, then the guilt will be translated and sent
Transferred.
Into
down to the child.
overcompensation also.
मैंने तो काम भी छोड़ दिया तुम्हारे लिए. What is wrong with you? When are you going to sit down and study?
And it injures the attachment and the relationship between mother and child.
And that is natural, but it's look what it's doing to the child. He's feeling inadequate.
Yeah.
He's feeling I'm a failure. He's feeling I'm stupid. And wants to, and is probably doing everything. But we are not giving the right skills. We're not understanding that child to be able to give them what they need. So they are drowning. And we're saying swim.
I really have to say though that when this before the podcast started, I was in my head, I was prepared to have this long conversation about this age-old debate of free play, what it means versus Montessori, and now we've gone in this direction about how parents and their parenting is affecting early childhood. And actually, this information we all of course had, but I'm blown away by how parents right now are very ill equipped with the amount of information out there. And I feel like we have a long way to go. Not only do we not have access to it, I don't even know if there's enough people imparting this education. So how do we solve something like this? And there's a lot of us. So what do we do?
So I really, I'm, as I sleep at night, ideas come, and I really feel my focus should be on parent education now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Fully agree.
Because if I'm a child advocate, and if my goal is the child, wellness and well-being for the child, then you have to make sure their ecosystem is
Supportive.
right.
Yes.
So, other than that, okay, you've created a school where, children are understood and are, given what is appropriate. It's parent education that's hugely needed.
No, it is critical, and I'll tell you why. So I'll give an example from yesterday. So my daughter came back from school. She's in school for 6 hours as a 4-year-old. So it's a long
Too
school
long.
day.
Yeah.
So she comes home, and obviously she's very well regulated outside the house. So obviously when she comes home, she needs to decompress. And the first 30 minutes, she's sometimes unregulated and a little cranky. And she's looking at me and she's like, well, I'm bored and you need to get me more activities, because I've tried to limit her after school activities, just being like free play, right? This is the time that you get to just be. So first I was like, maybe I have under scheduled her activities. So I actually just went to my best friend, ChatGPT. And I'm again not saying other people should, but this is where parent education is important, because for me, I went there and I said, look, my child is complaining about this. Should I add activities? And ChatGPT was like, no, because she's so used to the 6-hour day of being told what to do. She's come home, she needs to transition into an environment of being in charge of her own time. She's just figuring out that transition. That's why she's complaining. Give it time, she'll start playing herself. Gave it 30 minutes, just heard her grumble a little bit. And in 30 minutes, I just took her to the garden. And I was telling Nanki that she didn't need a kitchen set. She'd converted like twigs and leaves into a restaurant. And she was asking me what I need to eat and making me noodles from plants. So
That's why boredom is so important.
exactly.
No, so I think you hit the nail on the head that she's spending 6 hours being told what to do, how to do, what is expected.
Yeah.
And that's the thing in the early years, the experience she's having.
Yeah.
That then the brain doesn't have the ability. Whereas if this was the very child who was spending 6 hours in a very different environment where
She leads.
it is structured, but within that structure, there's total flexibility.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, just to give you an example, at Learning Matters, the classrooms are set up with interest areas, and the child decides, I want to dress up and role play and play with Play Doh, or I'm going to go to the art area and, hammer on chalk and mix some water in it and see, and I'm going to use this kind of brush and that. So you see, there is, or I'm just going to go quietly lie on a soft cushion and read a book, ask a teacher to read me a story or listen to a book and turn the pages myself, or I'm going to go outside in the garden and run and climb and roll. The choice is then the child's, and what they're going to do there is their own sort of thinking, and the role of the adult becomes to nudge their thinking.
Yeah.
So if a child decides to go to the block area and build, the adult can observe what is being built and then say, tell me what, and that also, stay out of the way. I mean, far and few you go.
Yeah.
You observe and you know next day bring in something that adds to their thinking. So I'm just saying, if a child is building a zoo and you see they're bringing the animals, and then they're, next day you can say, oh, would you like to label the different animal pens so that everybody who visits will know whether that's the giraffe space or the lion space? Leave the markers and the paper there for children. Maybe someone writing the initial sound for lion, and that says lion's cage. And you, yes, now I know, oh, that's the lion's cage. Okay. This is they write J for giraffe.
Yeah.
Depending on the age of
Yeah.
the child. Whereas a 5-year-old may start putting, L and N. Maybe another child is putting LION. So that's really telling you where children are developing. And also, some may say, tell me how to write lion. And you say, oh, sure, you want me to show you? And this is how we write lion. And you write it for them. So, there is freedom in those 6 hours to be who they are, and yet through that so much learning is coming, whether it's the literacy where you can have them then tell everybody else about what you've built with the block. I may next day bring a book that has zoo pictures and just leave it there for the child. I may uh, plan a trip to the zoo with them, a field trip. So you see, but if asking children at 4 to sit for 6 hours and take out that worksheets, and now we're all going to do, CVC words, and now we're going to do this play where you are going to be the princess and you're going to be the dog.
They forget to take agency of their play.
Control.
Yeah.
So, and I'm the eternal optimist. So I keep dreaming I'll have this school where older children will be able to come and, because I know what it looks like. I can visualize it. I know what's needed
You're right.
as against
I think it's
really.
also it's been a pleasure to kind of listen to everything, because why I even mentioned my educational background is because across the episodes of the podcast, I've often told them and many that child development is child mental health. That's what I learned
Yeah.
at the Anna Freud Center, and it was amazing because there's a lot of focus on early years. And even in my own work, I try to do early years work. But I think Mrs. Phillips just answered today that child development is child mental. That's what I mean. She's kind of
So
exemplified
it's a window.
It. Yeah, it's
It's
their
a very
emotional world.
distinct window where I'm not saying, we all know that early years is when children can pick up many languages
Yeah.
that they're exposed to, right? If a mother's French, the dad is Bengali, they can speak both languages easily. That doesn't mean they'll never learn French if you don't teach them at age 14, 12, whatever. It's just that it's that much harder. Because at that early years, everything is so pliable that it can be easily done with joy and no real effort needed. So it's that window of those early years that we can get it right for children. That doesn't mean that that window is closed forever.
I was just going to say that I can see how the way you are talking about the way you treat children over here would is needed across the age span. I mean,
But I do want to
Yeah.
say something, and I have heard this resistance from parents, and not specific to any one school, but it has happened that I've come across conversations where parents are like, well, this school is not academic enough. This school is not rigorous enough. The children are not learning mathematics the way Indian children should know mathematics, you know? And that's why I feel parent education is so important. Like for instance, my daughter's school sends, little videos of what they've been doing. So they've sent like the reading and the writing and all of that. But one video they sent of her building a bugs hotel using pieces of wood again. And she was saying that, this is for the bugs to cross over. These are like windows for the bugs for fresh air. And it was just wood. And for me, that has stayed more with me than like the other,
Even for her,
whatever.
I'm
Even
sure.
for her, I'm sure that was probably more fun. And luckily, she is in a school where there is enough of that. But again, I wonder if that's only in the early years. What happens when she's in like grade
Yes.
1 and grade 2 and grade 3? It gets more and more
the classroom
structured,
changes, the
classroom
visual
changes.
landscape changes, and hence the emotional landscape
And
changes.
that is coming from the parents to a degree.
You know,
it is coming.
earlier when, even now actually, because we have that afternoon program where children come after school to us, and the spaces double up. So it's the early childhood space that turns into spaces for them to come and work, be supported. And even at 8, 9, 10 years of age, I'll see children running to the dress up area, running to the art area, wanting to become the doctor. They'll wear that white shirt, they'll use the stethoscope on the doll, they will, take all the loose parts available in the art area and make their things. It's like they're thirsty.
Yeah.
They want that.
Craving.
Yes.
Yeah, they need it. So what I'm saying is that even as children get older, obviously you have to know. I'm not going to be putting up art materials that are, appropriate for much younger children, but I'll still know I'm going to put open-ended thing. Maybe I'm going to put out provocations from artists. Maybe I'm going to put a video of an artist speaking about themselves, because developmentally now those children are ready to
Yeah.
connect with that. So, and then the kind of research we want children to do on their own. But it has to build right from
Agreed.
from when they are little. Why do you think that leaf is turning the way it is? You're not giving them answers, or you're not even sort of dismissing their observation of that leaf drawing. I wonder why that leaf is brown now. What do you think has happened? Let them think, at least let them try. So, it's a way of being with children.
Yes.
And that's what makes learning matters. What learning matters is that's the way we are with children. There's no telling them what to do. There's no demanding. There's no right and wrong. Everything is diagnostic. It's telling us, if that child is running in the class, it's not, no, don't run. It's about that child needs movement. So I'm going to make sure they're outside.
Yeah.
And also help the child understand running is for outdoors.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go outside and run.
Yeah.
Inside, Baba, we might bump into
hurt
others.
ourselves, which is
So, and children are so
Receptive.
wise, capable in understanding. Even an infant, even a 6-month baby is wise, and they know that this is my mama's voice.
Yeah.
that this is now someone else changing my diaper. How that mama talks with that child while they are cleaning them. So that connection comes through all this.
And also the confidence. I think it's very important for children to have confidence. Like even to have my son is not even 2 yet, and my daughter is 4. And my daughter had a bad accident recently. Like she fell and she cut her forehead because she was playing with her cousins unsupervised. Because I was like, they're 10 and 7, and she's all 4.5. They can be unsupervised. When that happened, my first reaction was like, is it my fault? Did I leave her unsupervised when I shouldn't have? But I had to step away from that and be like, no, she had the confidence to handle an injury, move on from it,
and learn from it.
The
That
first
if
thing,
I do this, I'll fall
the
and hurt.
first thing she said was it was a dangerous game. I shouldn't have been playing it inside.
Yeah,
I
and
was
she
like,
very calmly went with you to the hospital.
yeah, I mean, she needed
There was no
stitches under
yeah.
surgery. But again, it was a learning that my body will heal. I can overcome difficult things. And it gave her the confidence to
making her resilient.
So,
That's because I don't know any childhood that grew up without hurting themselves. That's part and parcel. of being
I
a
think this
child.
curation is very
You
dangerous.
do fall, you do get hurt,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's the learning.
It's the way you react to the child that is going to determine how they develop responses and, like she said, resilience.
And emotionally, it's so important to acknowledge children's emotions and not to brush it aside. And very often, typical, a little child is crying and we say, अब तो बड़े हो गए ना, अब रोना क्या, देखो अब तो आप बड़े बच्चे हो गए ना, नहीं रोते. No,
Most
you
terrible
have to say,
sentences.
I know you're upset.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whatever that reason for that crying is, I know you're upset because you wanted that toy. Or I know you're upset because mama's gone. And
that it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. Like what I had to tell my daughter and my son as well is that it's okay to be angry. It's how you channel that anger that we can work on. That like if you're screaming and throwing a tantrum, let's work on getting to a point where you're not doing
And those are also skills, life skills. Like, how do you learn how to manage feelings?
But the feeling
what
itself is not wrong.
else? Yeah. If you're feeling sad about mama having gone and you're crying, first of all, you have to acknowledge
The feeling.
Yes, you're sad because mama's gone. Would it help if you came and sat on my lap? Would it help if you had Teddy on your lap? And also I want to tell you, mama will be back on, and then have a very concrete way of showing, after we've finished with music, mama will come.
Yeah.
So that's making them understand their world, what's happening, because they out of sight, out of my mama's gone, she'll never come back.
I want to say
That's a
something.
very natural
it's
developmental
thank you
thing.
for bringing this in. But I think since you mentioned you're an eternal optimist, I think I'm an eternal realist. And that comes from concern, not criticism at all. Because what we're effectively talking about is attunement and connection
Yeah.
to children, right? Attunement and connection to children. And I noticed the spark you have when you speak about children, and I think I would like to believe that hopefully mine will grow in a similar direction because I have that too. And what the parents I'm meeting, the younger parents, uh, best intentions, but highly unaware of what their intentions and needs are doing to their child, where there's a blurring of what is my need, what is the child's need. There's no attunement and there's no connection because they're not attuned and connected to themselves.
Every drop counts, I feel. So wherever you can put in a little, I was
Quality time.
I was sitting right now and there were parents who'd come for something not related to LM at all. And this child was at the glass window wanting to come in, and the father was saying, and I'm saying,
What's the
why?
problem?
Let the child come in. No. I said, what was the reason you didn't want him to come in? Oh, he's very naughty, he's very hard to manage. I said, really? Why do you say that? And the child came in and was playing and was running. I said, but this is what children do. They do need to run
Yeah.
and play, and that's what he's doing. He's perfectly
Being a child.
Yeah, and so where I could give a little nuska to the parent, I
Yeah.
just de diya.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I come from a point like I would talk to my own children about their being a good parent, So I'm saying it from love. I'm saying it from my
Care.
heart
Yeah.
of
No,
care.
and I believe that because sometimes parents don't know, they've not
Yeah.
heard it. The moment you hear it and it makes logical sense, you're like, oh, okay, let my child get bored.
And
There's
itna
value in
dar
it.
hai parents mein, because they feel, see, like that parent, he'll behave badly, you know there's that fear that is my child okay, will he be reprimanded, am I the bad parent because my child is but the child is not misbehaving, but I don't even know that this is normal
Exactly.
behavior.
And just hearing that it's normal validates that and helps you relax a little bit.
It's
Yeah.
And I
circling
also-
back to Mrs. Adams, Abha Adams episode, where we spoke so much about this, that only an anxious, there's so much anxiety in parents that the anxious parenting is creating anxiety in children. Otherwise, children are children,
No, this entire crop of
No
children will rebel.
child, not a single child is born
Yes.
a murderer, born a rapist, born a dysfunctional person.
Even born with anxiety. Like,
Yeah, no
Yeah.
child. So it's the environment of that child that is shaping them to become who they're becoming. So our role is so important.
huge.
I mean, when I see that little child on that another child's godi, that mother herself, maybe 15 years old, who's given birth to that poor child on my car window. I mean, that little baby who's looking in, what is happening in that child's head that will obviously make them dysfunctional, because society, as a society, we are not serving children. And this is true of children in poverty, it's true of children from affluence. Affluence means the other way, we are crushing them.
I think it's
with too much,
Yeah.
sab kuch dena, sab kuch, and thinks that, if I've got a Hamley's room in my bedroom, I've done my job.
Yeah, I think parents are too afraid to frustrate their children in
And
today's
there are a
world.
lot of parents who are in no way ready to be a parent.
Yeah.
They want to be this yummy mummy.
But this point that you made, I think, is very important. That there's problems at both extremes. In the affluence, there's a different kind of problem where, like, we're giving maybe too much. There's no frustration tolerance emerging in the child because
Mollycoddling.
they're frustrated for a second. You distract them with something, or you put them in a class, or you give them some stimulation. So there's no frustration tolerance. And in the other extreme, maybe there's too much frustration tolerance to the point that your basic needs are not met. You don't have food, you don't have shelter, you don't have a protective
Water.
parent, you don't have water.
You don't have a consistent emotional parent.
Exactly. And your parent doesn't have a regulated nervous system themselves because, it's the cycle that continues. But here's your optimism is important. Where are we seeing any kind of step towards addressing both these extreme scenarios? Like, how are we building I know you talk about equitable classrooms a little bit, but how are we progressing as a society where we're kind of, I don't know, addressing both these very contrary needs?
Also, in India, we are a very, very varied population. So, how do we create equity and equality all at the same time for children?
I just feel drop at a time,
Hmm.
because otherwise,
Yeah,
it's
you have to start
overwhelming.
somewhere. You have to start somewhere.
So you do your bit.
Yeah.
Each one of us should, you could begin with how you are as a parent with your children. And
Yeah.
that, maybe 3 of your friends will learn from that.
Yeah.
That's how you spread the ripple effect.
They are through this podcast.
So,
No, and I do think there's value in that because I have seen parents whose children are risk takers, who are, I've looked at their children and been like, I want my children to be like this, and then I've noticed that they're not the most, they're present, but they're not like the most, like, we need to micromanage parents. And it's helped me take a step back, being like, I really like how these children are independent, they're taking risks, they're well mannered, they're bright, they're asking difficult questions. But their parents are not putting them in 100 classes. Their parents are not managing their day to day the same way
And
somebody else's is.
because again, coming back to that question of every child is who they are. So, in spite of being that kind of a parent, you may still have a child who's failing in life in other
True.
ways, and you can still have, in spite of all this, a child who is resilient and
Yeah.
goes on to do. But we know what are best practices. So at least that's our responsibility as adults, to make sure we are doing the right thing. And then what comes up, it's like that beautiful book by Alison Gopnik on, it's called The Carpenter and the Gardener. Do you want to be a carpenter who's shaping and making that table look the way it should look? Or you're a gardener? You are just making sure the seed has been planted, the soil is nourished. Kis tarah ka plant niklega is up to the seed now.
Mm.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And
Yeah.
we
analogy.
need to be that rather than carpenters and shaping and curating our children to come out what we want them to be. So as long as, and keep advocating, whether it's in the school systems, whether it's anyway. I mean, I feel so lucky today that, that's the good side of technology, that today, you can listen to people, in your car. You can, you have access to so much more information. So,
I think that's a nice note to end on as well. More gardeners, less carpenters.
Carpenters.
That analogy sort
look
of.
at your own parenting style. Is it one of a carpenter or a gardener? Because if you're a gardener, and which truly I love gardening, you don't know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
You do your work. You make sure you're watering, the soil has the nutrients. But then what will come up?
Everything else
And
is
then
bonus.
you say, oh my God, where did this weed come from? And where did this gorgeous flower, bloom? That's what you see.
That it unfolds. There's an
Yeah.
unfolding,
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
room for spontaneity.
Nanki had said she had said this at one point. She was like, "Let their personhood emerge."
Yeah.
Your children are, they're their own individuals, and the moment you can see that as a parent, it sort of like gives you a lot of, Again, I'd seen this video somewhere where it said, as long as you get the basics in place,
What are those basics?
love, security, food, a roof over your head, comfort.
But most important is emotional presence.
Emotional
Availability.
presence. Exactly.
Being understood. More than anything else, what a child needs is, this is my safe space. And I can say what I want, I can do what I want, but I'm understood. So the number one thing that all children need is that emotional understanding.
To be seen and heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I tell the teachers, That's the most important. Be present for that child. When they're crying, you feel their pain. When they're happy, you feel their joy. When they're frustrated, you feel their frustration. You are emotionally present. That's what all this having air conditioning and making sure this material, that is the frills. If you don't have that core.
Yeah. And I think that's what it said. And it really took the pressure off even as a parent. Being like, how many classes I do, or how many languages that they learn, or how many friends that they have. All of that is secondary. What I need to really get right is this, presence.
Am I there for my child? Do I see my child? Am I present there? They don't need PRESENTS. They need PRESENC. Presence.
This can be the title.
Yes.
Presence
No, but it's
on
so
presence.
true. It's so true.
Yeah.
And even if that presence is just you being there, like if that's.
And so in the first 3 years, it's the mother.
Yeah.
Mother in the mammal world, it's the mother who builds that attachment. And it's if you have that attachment in those early first 3 years, that you'll run and explore. You'll
Secure
take
attachment.
risks.
It builds the
Yeah.
attachment
You'll
system.
take
Yeah.
risks. You will have confidence because you come back to that mother and then you run.
Yeah.
You have that safe space to come to. So that physical holding, that physical presence of a mother is so important. So we don't want to see mothers who are, putting their children in too early into schools or
Agreed, yeah.
sending them into daycare where someone else is looking after them, or the didi is there, the nanny can never replace. I mean, there are the odd fantastic nannies, of course, we know, but by and large.
They can't
And so
replace
if
the
you
mother.
are going in to become a parent, then you have to take certain decisions. I'm not going to be working out 6 days a week. I may drop and do it 3 days a week. I may work from home. I may, but because if you brought this life into this world, then you are responsible
Obligated,
for
yes.
that child.
No, and I do agree with that. And I think we're lucky enough in a position where we are able to be at home for our children. I was just telling Nanki that I'm very grateful for the fact that, I have 2 young children and I can say that, okay, I work from home large part of the week. My career is taking a backseat for the next 5 years. I'm okay with that. But what about people who can't? What about people who do have to work? How do they compensate for that? And I think Gloria Barrett had
Yes,
given me
that
a
episode.
good example of that. They were said, well, if they can't be there 6 hours of the day, then when they come home, then they should make sure they're there.
Yeah,
all
it's
of
Yeah.
that.
20
It's not
minutes.
about the length
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah.
It's the quality
Quality
of
of
time.
time. Yeah.
And also knowing that the rest of the time, where's the child?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I really want to say, I think what we were talking about, it's different the first 3 years. That's the foundation. It's like how we understand it psychologically when we do our infant observations between mother and child is the first year is when the attachment system is building,
Yeah.
and the second year is when the child is rehearsing it.
Yeah. Like
I'll run away from you. I'll come back to you.
Ace
That-
does that so much. So
exactly.
my son, till he was 1, if I ever took him somewhere, he'd obviously just be clung to me. And then he started doing this. He would run and he would look back to see if I'm following.
All
And
Yeah.
then,
children do that.
but now he runs off.
Yeah. Now he's over it. He's like, see ya.
Fine,
But
bye.
he's secure. He's
Yeah.
running securely. But
Yeah.
if we push that child to be on their own
Too
without
fast, yeah.
that, then it comes at a great cost of their psychological health and well-being.
And inconsistent caregivers.
Not
what you
being
said,
trusting of
Yeah.
the world, And we all know adults who are like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's rooted in childhood.
In childhood.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. And I'm so happy that most of the conversations that we've had with the experts, you and, the other, sort of people who have a lot of credibility in the field, all repeat that secure attachment in the first 3 years of life is really the foundation of your emotional health later on. Because it
And physical health.
And physical health
Yeah.
later
It
on.
also
Yeah.
impacts your immunity
That's
and
exactly
your
what
physical health.
Gayeti's favorite Gabor Mate speaks about. He's
Yeah.
a physician. He's not a
Yeah.
psychologist.
Yeah, he's my-
But he did say
Yeah.
that he had a shift in his
Yeah.
own practice as a physician when he began to go into what Mrs. Phillips was saying earlier, that instead of just listening to the symptoms, the physical health symptoms of his patients, he began to inquire about, so what's going on in your life? What was your childhood like? How distressing was home? Was there conflict? Was there not conflict? And actually, it's very, there's a very famous published study called The Adverse Childhood Experiences, which it's a published study on Google. It's available for everyone, which talks about how there are 8 to 9 listed adversities which are experienced as distressing to children, which then later correlate to all kinds of autoimmune conditions, physical health
Exactly.
conditions,
That's what I said.
and emotional health, mental health conditions.
Physical.
And-
Emotional is understood, but even
Physical,
your
physical.
immunity, your
Yes.
ability to stay healthy. Yeah.
And I think this 3-year cutoff is very helpful as a parent. Also, not that it is a cutoff. It's obviously, fluid. But for instance, like discipline. Like my husband and I would speak about this because my daughter, more than my son, would have more like she feels her emotions more strongly. So she would like if she's in a tantrum, it's hard to get her out of that tantrum for like 15, 20 minutes. So my husband would be like, well, this is her misbehaving, this should be disciplined. Now it was like, no, till 3 years, we're not disciplining anything. They don't have the rational ability to understand what discipline even is. Just let her feel her emotion. Say we're here. And honestly, it's worked out so well because she's 4.5 now. She doesn't have any more tantrums. She's able to verbalize what she needs. And now she's able to understand what discipline, what a repercussion is, she gets that shift. But this 3-year mark really helped me fight for the fact that, till 3, secure attachment. I don't want to discipline my child till 3. That's not saying I'm going to allow everything, but I'm going to try and meet them where they are.
I don't like the word discipline.
I was just going to say that. I think it really needs to be understood.
Yeah. Children don't need discipline. They need to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And they need logic. And they need, boundaries from you. What is acceptable behavior, what's not. But discipline in my mind is like a little more hard.
Yeah.
That you do this, you're not going to be allowed to do this. You do
Very
this
black
and
and
you're going
white.
to go and sit in the corner.
Yeah.
That we know doesn't work. Just like we know rewards don't work. Giving stickers and giving stars and giving...
It doesn't work?
Not at
Oh,
all.
no.
Not at all.
Yeah.
If you want to know more, you should be... Alfie Kohn has written a book called Punished by Rewards.
Yeah. So punished by rewards means what exactly? It's like...
It means that we are always, oh, you did this, excellent, you get a gold star. Or, you did this, Sona, and now look how many gold stars, all this. That means extrinsically driven.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, but you want children to develop their own intrinsic ability to know how to work, to be motivated, So you can't. And there's the same way, I'm always telling our educators, this whole thing of praise versus encouragement. So praise is, wow, good job, excellent, that's amazing. That's praise. It's not helping to repeat that behavior. Okay? But if you encourage a child, then you have to say things very specific that I notice you were coloring so carefully to stay inside the line. Now, next time that child will remember, it's that I need to do. Instead of saying, wow, wonderful. You see the difference?
It all comes down to parental understanding.
Language plays a huge role. Our words become their internal language. So what words we choose is really important when we talk to children.
There is also commodification of this reward system, because I remember when my son was 2.5, and I called up Nanki and I said, I found this really cute to-do list online and I want to put it in his room, and he's learning how to brush his teeth on his own, and then he'll go and make a little tick mark, or I'll put a smiley there every time he does these tasks. And she was like, stop right there. She said, you are doing no such thing. I cannot tell you how many potential mental health issues this will lead to. And for everyday regular life skills, there is no need to have this kind of a to-do. Now, I am very lucky that I went to school with someone who now is an expert in her field, and I can call up and be like, hey, I was thinking about this, and she reprimanded me right then and there. But for a regular parent, most people don't have that, and this is being sold
not
on
reprimanded. I simply
not
explained
reprimanded
to you
in the
how
sense
it
that,
impacts your child's
I
development.
think in that moment she
and
was
how
like,
he feels
no.
about himself.
Yeah.
That he's going to be relying on these external tick marks.
Yeah,
I
Nanki
mean, I
was
think
not
it was
happy
done
with
to
that.
us in school. I remember when I was growing up, like, they used to give stickers, like stars for like things, and they're still doing that in
I
many schools in Delhi.
know.
I wanted my daughter to learn how to clean up. Like, I don't want her to be like, okay, the nanny or the didi is going to clean up. It's very important to me that they do things for themselves. So to motivate her, I did make a chart being like, whoever cleans up today gets a sticker. It didn't last very long, so maybe that's why it doesn't work also, because twice or thrice she was interested in getting that star. And
No,
then
it
she
should
lost
just be an
interest.
expected behavior that if we bring things out, we put them back in their place. It's just an expected behavior, and that's the value in your home. And so there's no sticker for it.
Yeah.
It takes me back to our conversation when one of our unparent meetings where they asked me, that how do you ensure that your child doesn't grow up entitled? And maybe that's a question we should ask her. That
What?
that how do you make sure, like, this is a perfect example of you do it yourself versus Didi will do it, right?
Yeah.
And you very very simply put it, it's an expected behavior. It's part of the value system of your home, right? And that ties into this concept of entitlement, right? That I always have didis and bhaiyas and helps and drivers to do it for me, vis-a-vis what you do for yourself.
And I think that
But
is
children
like,
don't know.
Yeah.
It's what you show
Model
them.
for
What
It's
you
them.
how they
model for
learn.
Yes,
them.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Because the child is innocent.
They are going to internalize every aspect of you.
So it's the value system
Yeah.
you put
Yeah.
that, we take care of the materials. And it's our responsibility. It's not someone else's. And India में तो ये बहुत है.
Absolutely.
हम सिर्फ कुकिंग करते हैं, हम बर्तन नहीं धोते, हम
Yeah,
सिर्फ हम बाथरूम नहीं करेंगे, हम ये वाले साफ करेंगे because of this caste system.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
we have all these divisions, and we slot people according to that, and it's so wrong. You're taking away the humanness of everybody and that respect for all. So it's part of our culture, how we have to be. And the Didi is only there to assist us with something that we can't do ourselves to help. But not that it's their job.
no,
And this is a whole family value system,
Yes.
how we speak to our help at home, how we treat them, how we.
Respect is modeled.
So
and I just want to say modeling. Like, that's it. Like, that day I'd made a mess of my cupboard and my daughter was standing there. And I was like, I better not tell anyone else to clean this up. I better clean it up myself, because I need to model to her.
they
that,
learn by what they see.
I make a mess, I clean my mess. But now she started correcting me also. That day I made the mistake of asking someone for a glass of water, and she just looked at me and she was like, your glass of water, you go get it. And I actually got up and I was like, you're
Well
absolutely
deserved.
right. You're absolutely
Good
right.
for
My glass of
her.
water, I'll
Yeah.
go get it. She was like, don't boss her around. I was like, yeah, I won't. But thank you, Miss Philip. I think this was a really insightful conversation. And thank you for letting us shoot at this space. Because, I mean, when I walked in, I was like, if I was a child, I would really...
Yeah, it just
Love it.
instantly
Yeah,
makes
so
you
these two
happy.
children who came now, they're not learning matters children, but they were like dying to be
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So I said,
I mean, I
yes,
don't
we
want to
got it
leave, so
right.
forget
Yeah.
the children, because it's such a happy,
It is a
bright
happy-
space. Like, literally did not
Because-
need my coffee this morning. I've been having tea.
I know.
Because there's, I put in a lot of emotion in what I do. And I think that comes across because, it's like a home that an interior decorator does, and a home where, your life's travels have got the books you've read over the years, the pieces you picked up when you traveled to Cambodia, and the carpets from Turkey. That's your life. So there's so much emotion there as against a flat. But
Curation.
Thank you for that. And I'm glad I had this chance to express my thoughts on children and how they can be served better.
No, thank you so much for making the time. And I know we've really eaten into your afternoon. So
Because
we'll wrap.
class
Yes,
have-
yes, we'll
have
wrap
to
up.
come
Thank
back.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you.
We'll be back.